Thanks so much for joining us tonight virtually for the opening of the Pulse Art and Technology Festival. We're really happy to have you here with us. I'm Harry DeLorme, Senior Curator of Education for Telfair Museums, and it's my pleasure to be involved with this festival once again. This is actually our 15th year presenting Pulse here at Telfair Museum's Jepson Center in Savannah, Georgia. So I'd like to welcome everyone coming in from Savannah and from various parts of the world for our program tonight. And what I'm going to do as we're still welcoming more people to the program, I'd like to turn things over to Telfair Museum's new Executive Director and CEO, Mr. Ben Simons, who wants to welcome us tonight.
Good evening, everyone. And this is, I think, maybe our first global live cast of an event. And welcome to all the audience in the Caribbean, especially. It's great to have you here. I am the new director of the Telfair Museums, and so this is my first Pulse Festival. And I had the pleasure of going through the exhibition today with Harry. And David, welcome to this program, but also congratulations on your exhibition. It's spectacular. And I encourage all of you to come to the museum and see it in person, because it's immersive and interactive, and your body, your voice, your presence guides the presentation, and it's really, really fun. So with that, I'll just say welcome and great to have you all here.
Thanks so much, Ben. And I'd like to welcome our special guest, Mr. David Gumbs, who's joining us tonight from Martinique. And as Ben mentioned, we've got a great crowd of folks attending tonight from not only here in Savannah, Georgia, where we're based, but throughout the Caribbean as well. We've got a hello from St. Martin and folks joining us from Martinique and from elsewhere tonight. So thank you all for being part of this. We are very excited to be presenting David Gumbs' work here at Telfair Museums in Savannah, his first solo U.S. museum exhibition. It's really fantastic, and I hope that those of you who are in the Savannah area can see it, and those of you who can't, I hope you'll see the documentation of the exhibition as it opens, and we'll be putting more images and video online. So tonight, again, I want to thank David Gumbs, our special guest, for being here. Thank you to Ben Simons, our director. And I just wanted to say that this year has been particularly challenging in putting on a new media festival because of the pandemic. Thankfully, technology allows us to meet virtually, though. And again, we have this fantastic exhibition to focus on this year. I hope that you'll check out the full schedule for Pulse online. We'll be posting that link tonight. You can also go to telfair.org and to our website and check out the whole Pulse schedule. We have a lot of virtual programs, and you are welcome to register for any of those programs wherever you are. They are free of charge. So please check out that schedule. I'll just mention a couple of those in the interest of time. Tomorrow night, we have a talk that will be great for any parents or teachers out there. When we have Diana Eng, who is a fashion designer. You may remember her from the television series Project Runway. She's also a technologist and the co-founder of an important makerspace in New York City, and author of the book Fashion Geek. And she'll be here with Natalie Drew, who is the former editor of Craft Magazine and another great artist and maker. And the two of them are going to be offering STEM Chat Live, which is a program designed to help parents or teachers, adults, help young people find creative STEM activities to explore at home. So this is something that I think is really important during these pandemic times. And we're really excited to have the two of them presenting their first live version of their web series, STEM Chat. So that's tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. here Eastern Standard Time. It'll be on Zoom, and you can find that link on the museum's website under the Pulse schedule. Also on Friday morning at 11, we have a program by two Savannah-based artists who are exhibiting this year, Mr. Greg Finger and Guangzhu Zhu Ku, who are two local artists who are exhibiting in the Pulse Festival. They will be giving a talk at 11 a.m. on Friday morning. I want to give a special shout out to Greg for helping us install David's work this year, because David could not be here personally with us to help us with the installation. So I really appreciate the help he has offered for that. And if you're in Savannah, if you're joining us from Savannah, we have a 3-day free admission weekend here at the Jepson Center, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you're here locally, please come in and take advantage of that and see the exhibition. I want to thank our sponsors tonight who have made this program and the Pulse Festival possible, particularly the City of Savannah, which has provided funding for this program and a lot of our community programs here in Savannah. I'd like to thank the Georgia Council for the Arts and the Terra Foundation for American Art. And so with that, I'm going to move on to tonight's program. And again, we're very pleased to have with us Mr. David Gumbs joining us from Martinique and from his studio. I was really excited to come across his work as a curator working on new media festivals, to see work like his. His work has been appearing in various parts of the world, in biennials, in technology, art and technology, new media festivals. And I was excited to come across his work for many reasons. The lushness and beauty of the imagery that he incorporates into his work, the interactivity, as well as the way that this work that he produces links back to his studio practice, because drawing is really foundational part of his practice, as we'll see later on tonight. So we're pleased to offer his very first solo US museum exhibition, and the first time his drawings have actually been shown in the United States. And David is a multidisciplinary artist from St. Martin, based in Martinique. He graduated from the Visual Arts School in Fort-de-France, Martinique, in 2001 with a degree in visual arts. He later studied Interactive Multimedia Conception at Lancy and Les Ateliers in Paris, where he lived and worked for some 10 years. Although he actually taught himself many of the techniques that he's going to be talking with you about tonight. So that's pretty amazing that he sort of came to this sort of organically like that and really taught himself a lot of the technology used in his current work. Since that time, since his studies, he has exhibited his drawings, video, and interactive works internationally at venues and exhibitions, including Paris City Hall, at the Prizm Art Fair for Miami Art Week, the 2017 Jamaica Biennial, and many others. His recent exhibitions include the Currents New Media Festival in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the touring exhibition Relational Undercurrents, a major survey of Latin American and Caribbean art in the United States, which opened at the Museum of Latin American Art in Los Angeles and traveled to the Portland Museum of Art, the Patricia and Phillip Frost Art Museum, and elsewhere. In 2016, he was awarded the Davidoff Initiative Artist Residency in Beijing. And in 2019, he was an international artist in residence at Art Omi in Ghent, New York. He participates in new media festivals in France, China, the US, and throughout the Caribbean. And he's a faculty member at the Visual Arts School in Martinique, where he's taught interactive media, motion design, and mixed media design since 2009. And tonight, he will give us a look at his work and the variety of projects he's been involved with, from drawing to large-scale projection works and performance. So with that, I will turn things over and welcome our speaker tonight, Mr. David Gumbs.
Hey, good night, everyone. Good night, Harry. Thank you, Harry, Benjamin, for receiving me and for the invitation to exhibit at the Telfair Museum. I would like to thank the whole staff also that helped set up the work at distance. I know it wasn't easy preparing new media work. Thank you all that are joining now for the presentation. So I'm going to present my work in two stages. There's going to be a brief history about the current works, the current projects, the ongoing projects, and also the base of my work, the origin of my work. And actually it's going to be in three parts. And the third part is going to be a presentation of the 2 or 3 of the pieces, interactive pieces that are presented in Telfair, and that are new pieces, and that I'll try to show for those that don't have the opportunity to travel for the obvious reasons of the pandemic and related situations. So let's jump into it. So most of the time, I'm asked where I'm from. So for those that are not familiar with the Caribbean islands, here's a little idea of where I'm from. When you look on the right, you can see the islands of Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique a bit further down, and you can have a better idea here. The image that you have here is a map that we use most of the time when there's hurricanes. It gives us a good idea of where the hurricane can be situated, and it's part of the French national weather channel map. So a few words about the upcoming projects. Next month, next February, I'm also lucky to be selected for the ILLUMINATE GABLES festival. That's going to be an outdoor projection festival in Gables in Miami, where I'm lucky to present 2 pieces. This one is called Echo of Souls, and it's an interactive. It was an interactive piece, but we've decided to create a video work that's going to be projected on the Davidson building in Coral Gables. It's a token to people that family members, friends that passed away due to the COVID situation and the pandemic, but it's also a token to people that we lost over the years, people that got lost due to social injustices or to migration issues. So it's a sort of token to all of those that we sometimes lost and didn't get the opportunity to say goodbye to also. So I'm lucky to present this piece because I'm actually presenting 2 works in that exhibition and festival. The second one is called Echo of My Skin. That's going to be projected on a huge wall at the Actors Playhouse in Coral Gables, next to the Starbucks. It's part of the diptych. Actually, both pieces form a diptych, but this one is more personal. It engaged more a local audience. It speaks more about migration. It speaks more about flux. It speaks more about the dreams that you had coming or migrating to the US, for instance. So it's a more a personal piece that's going to, where the public is going to interact with infrared sensor, and their movements are going to be picked up and trigger animations and sound in real time. So I'm really excited about these 2 pieces that's going to show. And because they are actually with the Telfair show, my first real huge shows in the US. So I'm really grateful and thankful for these new opportunities. Coming up are the recent projects I did in Martinique, in France, and there are a few that I did in Asia, but I didn't include in the presentation, but that you can find on my website. So I created a performance called Inner Child. That's a performance where I invited a DJ, a dancer, and a sculptor to create a live event at Tropic Atrium Scène Nationale, which is the national theater in Martinique. It was surprisingly packed. We weren't expecting that much of a crowd. We even had to refuse people outside. So it was my first performance in the National Theater at this scale. And you can see the dancer and the DJ and myself collaborating in real time. The sound was mixed in real time, was created in real time, generated in real time from musics of my, shall I say, Caribbean heritage, music inspired by dancehall, by reggae, by soca. I told the DJ that I wanted to, the inner child meant talking about my childhood from St. Martin, talking about my childhood from Sandy Ground, where is the neighborhood where I grew up from. And that actually inspired the title of this exhibition, from dust to gold. because Sandigong is a bit of a sort of dusty neighborhood that's next to the sea. But I always remember my mom and my grandmother always complaining about the sand waves, like the sand blown by the sea and all that. So it was a sort of token to a tribute to where I was raised. This beautiful island with beautiful sea, but with a different scope than Martinique, where I live now. So this piece was separated in two. There was a live performance where with some video mapping, interactive dance during the first part. And the second part, we invited the public to come and to interact with this piece that's called, well now, Inner Child, and that's part of the Telfair exhibition also, but as a video piece and not interactive. And they were able to dance alongside the dancer or after her and see the piece react to them. I'm really proud that I was able to do this piece because it's not common having 5 or 6 meter high LED screen in these sort of spaces. You usually see them for concerts and plays and in festivals. So it was the first time, besides seeing my work in Shanghai, that I saw my work at that scale in the Caribbean. So I was really proud to be able to achieve this, thanks to the director and the staff of the National Theatre Tropicatrium Scène Nationale of Martinique. I'm going to talk about this piece that's called Eco Nature. It's a commissioned piece by the curator Dorothée Dupuis, and that was produced by Lille 3000 in the north of France. It's an exhibition that lasted 6 months. I think it was one of the longest installations that I had. It's an interactive tunnel of 10 meters. I'm just going to show a fragment of the video from the show because you can find it on my website and you can see it on my Vimeo account. I hope it doesn't have too much lag or any lag at all.
No, it's playing. It looks good.
Okay, awesome. So it's an interactive piece where the public actually walks on sensors that are placed under the reflective carpet. As they walk on those sensors, they trigger real-time patterns that are inspired by our colonial past, and also the lush tropical nature that we have, obviously, in the tropical islands. So I use patterns from trees, flowers, leaves. It's a sort of traversée, as you say in French, a journey through this sort of hypnotic space. It's also a metaphor of the journey that you'll have, like coming from our continent to the tropical islands. So it's after the Jamaica Biennial piece, Blossoms, that actually is going to be presented now also at the Telfair Museum on the 3rd floor. This was my biggest piece, the more complex piece I've ever built until now. And I'm really proud because over the 6 months of existence, because it was a commission work that was then installed, over 500,000 visitors actually went through that piece. And that's like my biggest reward. It was to see that the piece actually influenced and lived for so long, because sometimes we are all scared about interactive pieces in venues. And this piece actually made it through that long period in France during the summer also, and had amazing feedbacks from it. We're going to talk about the current New Media Festival, which was my first New Media Festival in the US, in Santa Fe, in 2018. In 2019. I was so honored and touched to be selected at this high level, difficult selection committee with only great works. And I presented Blossoms, that's actually presented now also from Dust to Gold exhibition. So Blossom is an interactive, immersive interactive piece. It's a cube. You can see in the middle of the image a conch shell that the public blows into, and the strength of the breath of the public generates real-time patterns in real time, and having this sort of flourish interaction in real time. The version that we are going to present, that presented at Telfair, is a new version that's been reworked, especially for the space, and especially for the COVID situation, where that's basically sound reactive. So as you enter the piece, we will invite you, at least for the folks that are living in Savannah, that will visit, to make sounds, to sing, to clap, to play music, and you will see that the piece will respond to you visually. It usually responds also with sound, but for this specific iteration, we wanted it to we wanted the public to really realize how impactful their participation will be with this piece also, but without touching anything and just being actively vocal, I would say, in the space. In 2017, I was happy to be one of the winners of the National Street Art Contest for Martinique, and the only one for Saint Martin. It was a street art contest that didn't specify if you only did like painting or using graffiti work. And I applied. I said, well, video mapping is also part of street art, but it's not something that's really generalized where I'm from. So let me apply. And the good thing is that this open call was from Paris. So it's not like a local open call, it's a national open call. And I was so surprised that they actually give me a grant to do the piece that I'm going to show now. So let's hope that the video works smoothly also. So it's called Éclosion Digitale for Digital Blossom. It's an interactive video mapping work. It's not a linear video mapping work for 20 minutes or half an hour. It's actually interactive. There's a touch screen that allows you to change the patterns. You had 8 environments that you can choose from and move the patterns along the building as you wish. I really wanted to do something interactive because the commune that's is the Trois-Idées, where it's based from, is a beautiful seashore commune with a mixed variety of populations that don't always mix together. And it was really touching to see kids, families, and elderly people coming out of church also come in and play with a piece. Especially in our cultures, abstraction or the sort of abstract-ish sort of work that I do are not always popular in this region, but it really got an amazing welcome. There was a huge traffic jam also. That was how to say, blocking the streets and stuff. So I'll let you enjoy some of the patterns, and you see how it reacts on the building. At one point, you would see the public interacting with the screen, like now. And that was really a fun experience that I hope I'll have the opportunity to do another time. Also, technically, it's important to say that regions, the budgets and stuff are limited. So setting up a show like this, I basically set it up the night before. I wasn't able to set it up over 3 days a week and be comfortably and start and launch the piece. It was really a short turnover to video map the church, build the interaction, test it. I only had one night to set it up and test it. And then the other night was the presentation. So it was the first time presenting an interactive mapping. So it was really challenging. And I'm really proud that my assistants, the students from the Visual Arts School, Jonathan, I forgot some of the names, but they were recognized themselves. That really helped me to set up this piece. Also, the El Media company that we rented the projectors from. So let's talk a bit about the concepts that underline my work. I'm inspired by Edouard Glissant, the French poet from Martinique. But I'm also inspired by philosophers like Antoine Lavoisier. Mass is neither gain nor loss, merely transformed. This is for me the base of my interactive work. You often will see looping sort of animations or sort of tornado shapes. But for me, they represent the cycle of life. As we say in French, I'm translating from French, so I hope it's proper English. But the capacity that life has to renew itself, and that's what really brought me to work with plants and trees. It was this first impression of when you cut grass now, you come back the next day, the grass has gone, and as if it never stops. This sort of this process of being able to renew itself is really something that triggers a lot in my work. I'm also concerned about what are we what we perceive? Are we our memories or what we saw on TV or on internet 2 hours before? Does that have an influence on what we are going to say or write or sing 10 hours from now? When I talk about perception, I mean visually, but also in the body. I'm always interested in concepts related to micro and macro cosm, the infinitely wide and the infinitely small. When I started out doing interactive animations, there were mainly flash animations online, and they drove to become real-time animation in space. I'm going to show you some images of my first solo show in Martinique. That really was the turning point to all that I'm doing now, because it was really the first time that I was able to show the public that I wasn't crazy. Because our regions working with what the French would call psychedelic animations, even though I don't find or consider my work being psychedelic, but that's the term that the French use when I go to France for venues and stuff. It was the first time that I were able to bring together the digital works, the digital collage, the light works. These are laser carved light installations. And those patterns were actually generated from real-time video works. They weren't built in Photoshop or any editing program, visual editing program. They are actually fragments from animations like this. I decided to show you this exhibit, even though it's a bit old, and it dates from 2016, because there's key elements in it that still I'm still obsessed with, and I don't know why. The first one is the conch shell that you see in the middle here, that you blow into, like in the blossoms piece. But this sort of also totem wings-like shape that I never understood where it came from, but it imposed itself to me without being able to explain it. And I still defend it today without even knowing why. I just realized that after the residencies I did in Shanghai and in Beijing, that maybe perhaps there's a stronger spiritual aspect to my work than I ever talked about or accepted to talk about, behind the topic of nature, behind the topic of life cycle, the cycle of life, the renewal of life. There's maybe something deeply spiritual. And I think some of the pieces like that are presented at the Telfair Museum are actually engaging this more spiritual aspect of things. One of the pieces is called Tropical Divinities that I'm going to show you in a bit. So these are the images of this exhibition, where was the first time that I actually combined most of my practices except the drawings. What I like with the Telfair museum space is that the drawings exist on their own with their own beauty, and yet as you navigate through the exhibition, they make sense with the detailed and patterns and particles that you can imagine in them. You can also visualize them in the interactive works. So it's really, I'm pointing this out because it's really the first time that I was able, and thanks to Harry for seeing this through, to combine the drawings and the interactive work. Most of the time they were presented separately because they didn't match, or I didn't find a way to make them match directly. The pieces that from now on, what you're gonna see is really my background in drawings. The first experiments that I had, the first time I started to use visual mapping, and also when I started to use the Isadora software that I use to build all of my works. What do I mean by mental archaeology? As a Caribbean Creole artist, I don't know beyond my grandmother's, beyond my mother's mother. I have no idea who's behind before that. Our family tree is really, I would say, now. My family comes from an island close by that's called Anguilla, and I was lucky to meet my mother's great uncle or something at one point. But that's the furthest that I went. And I have the impression that the way when I do my random drawings, that I have sort of fragments of memories of maybe a past life or past generation. So that's why I call these series of drawings usually mental archaeology, because they are for me like fragments of this part of myself that I don't know, but that emerges when I draw. But I don't necessarily see shapes or forms in them, but it's when the public start to talk about them that I realize that, oh, they see things that I have no clue existed there. So there's where I start to work on questions related to perceptions. But before coming to this digital work, actually, I'm just going to go forward and come back a bit. This is part of what I call my mental archaeology. This is a drawing that I did when I was a student at the Visual Arts School. that I kept and I refused to sell because it was the only one with this sort of I don't know how you say in English. It's the only one with this sort of with this look, with this feel, with this architecture, with this construction, where you can clearly see what looks like maybe spirits, creatures, roots, plant-like shapes, anthropomorphic shapes. Because recently my work can look like more like this. That doesn't have the same feel. It's even more organic. You don't know if it's beneath the skin. You do not know if it's in a lake or reflection in a lake. Yeah, there's really many ramifications to this. So the background of work that I come from is photography, but photography of trees, dead trees, trees that look like anthropomorphic shapes. These were taken, the left one is taken at my first trip in Japan. The one on the right is on a deserted island off the shores of Martinique. Yeah, and these are the works that actually feed my practice. What people don't imagine is that from these works actually comes this. I get most of my inspirations while I do my random drawings. I don't sit down and say, oh, I'm gonna do a new interactive piece. No, actually, it's by trial, error, mistakes that the new pieces emerge. But most of the time, the inspiration comes when I find that spot, that space where I'm no longer thinking, I'm no longer trying to do something beautiful, I'm no longer trying to please a curator, or I'm in a zone where I'm just trying to follow the inspirations that come, the things that guide me, and that's how the interactive work comes to play. I know a lot of different interactive artists and even Caribbean artists that always have a topic like linked to slavery, linked to identity, linked to feminism, linked to a colonial past. And I suffered a long time, and I really say it now that I suffered a long time for not feeling that I was part of a sort of community or trend, because of the abstraction in my work, or being always attracted to these sort of hypnotic, repetitive, recursive patterns. But today, with a lot of distance, with a constant work and seeing how the new pieces are coming out of the studio, I realized that it makes sense. It makes sense, but on a long run, this piece is created it's part of an animation, and it's created with the conch shell, the repeating recursive animations of the conch shell. This piece is a fragment of Écorché, one of the pieces that's presented, one of the video works that are presented at the museum right now. I'm really proud because it's the second time it's shown. It was shown in 2018 for an exhibition that I did with the great sculptor Hervé Beuz in London. And I wasn't satisfied yet about the title, and the title was temporarily called Blood, but I found it was too, it had too many implications that I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to talk about. But the French title Écorché really relates well. So it works like a self-portrait because the face that's there is mine. So it's a sort of auto-portrait, as we say in French. And it speaks about the overflow of like the everyday Creole life, or life as a Black person in this age of times. So there's a short fragment. I'm going to show you a short fragment video from the piece, but you'll see more of it in the exhibition. So there's voluntarily glitch. That's not your internet connection. It's really the way the piece is built. So this is a bit what I feel when I'm overwhelmed. It's a piece that talks about how you feel overwhelmed in our everyday life. I usually express it in my drawings, but it was interesting seeing it coming out in our video work. That's completely different from the rest of my video works. But mostly, it's the second piece that took maybe a year to create, meaning that I've been thinking, gathering pieces over a year for this piece and another piece that we haven't shown in this exhibition, but you can find on my website, or I can send you if you're interested. That's called Water and Dreams. These two pieces, the process is really a longer process than the interactive work. I just collect things. I collect notes, thoughts, comments, things, feelings. I remember that my friend now, when she first saw this work, came immediately and asked me what did I meant to express by it, because she was so touched about it. And I didn't really realize at the time how strong the piece was. It really took me after the London exhibition to realize how strong this piece was, because people really related to it a lot at that time. And I think you will actually relate to a lot to it also. So I'll leave you discover it. I'm not going to show all of the piece because I have it things that I would like to show, but you can see it as a self-portrait. As a way of changing spaces, being all at once in the universe, but all at once in my body. That's the way that's the feel I have from it. So I'm gonna change to a little brutal transition. Sorry about that. Hopla. Coming back to my drawing work. I always show this piece because it was one of my only color drawings. It was for an exhibition included in an interactive piece called Voyage dans l'œuvre, Journey Within the Art Piece. It has a special feel to it, and I kept on showing it because I actually find this was done, I think, in early 2014. But I find now the patterns that I use actually now that I never used before, like the recursive circular shapes in the animations, they actually were already quite present in this drawing piece. We have also this 7 meter high and 5 meter, 5.5 meter, no, sorry, 7 meter high and 4 meters wide piece that's called the Horizon. I really wish I'll have the opportunity or residencies or commission to someday do these large paintings, but maybe have them as an immersive, interactive backdrop for interactive works in a large space. That's like one of my dreams. I really hope that it would happen someday. I was invited to do this piece for an exhibition in Paris. And I just wanted to express this sort of randomness in the way the drawings, we say in French, proliférer, the way they grow, the way the lines grow on you. And what I like with this experience is that I basically painted with my feet into on the canvas. I was standing in it, not away from it and painting on a scaffolding or something. I was actually in the piece, and that was really a great experience. Just to show you my few works in theater and dance. So I started off working with a company called Christiane Emmanuel in Martinique. She was the first person that actually was interested in my organic visuals. And that was the first time that I actually were able to emerge our dancers on stage. Then I worked with Marlène Miotti and Myriam Soulange, a choreographer from Guadeloupe and one from Martinique, on a piece that's called Principe de Précaution, that's actually talking about all that's happening now with the environment, with nature, and which was one of the best like optical illusion pieces that I did for stage work. I'm quite proud of this one, and it's so accurate today, linked with all that's happening with pollution and stuff around the world and also in the Caribbean. This is another piece that I did with children. There were over 100 children, and I had carte blanche, as we say in French. The choreographer came to me because he knew that I had this sort of galactic sensibility, and he just gave me different themes like the Big Bang, the birth of a star, and wanted to see how I could challenge this on stage, both on the floor and on the backdrop. This is our piece called Le But de Roberto Carlos. I'm quite proud of this one because the metteur en scène, Hassan Kouyaté, is really famous and known internationally. I think he did probably like 15 times the turn of the earth, by traveling into so many venues with his company. And he was the former director of the National Theatre in Martinique, also for a mandate of 3 years, I think. And I was so touched that he trusted me, not knowing me, for this piece. So, as we are reaching to the end, nearly of the presentation, I want to show you, present you a few pieces, 3 pieces from the exhibition From Dust to Gold. As I told you before, the title comes from a sort of giving thanks to my childhood neighborhood, Saint-Gown. That's one of the neighborhoods that's known to be a bit the hot neighborhoods, as you will say today, and back in the day also. And I'm touched because it's a way of showing that the younger generations also that comes from there that well, there's hope, there's possibilities to come out of the island and do things, but it doesn't come without work and sacrifice also. So From Dust to Gold, it's this sort of metaphor of a rebirth also. I see it as a sort of phoenix rebirth also. Last year, I will just say something personal, was a difficult year emotionally for me. And if it wasn't for my partner and Jonathan and my family that are close to me, I don't know where I'll be now and how things would have unfolded. So this title means this rebirth from what could have been dust, but from dust comes gold, from dust comes diamonds. So it's a bit this frame of mind that I had when the title came to be. So the first piece that I'm gonna show you, it's gonna be a sort of live performance, actually, meaning that I'm gonna present you the piece. You're actually gonna see me interacting with it. I wanted to do something different and show, well, that we can use technology also in a different way. And this is for my family and friends that are from the Caribbean or from around the world that can't make it to see my first show in the US. It's a way for me to present you guys the piece. So on the bottom left, you remember seeing me at the beginning. So I'm just going to show you how the piece interacts and say a few words about it also. So this is one of the pieces that for me is a bit more, I'm just going to turn off something, video tracking, 1 second. Hopla. Okay. So this is one of the pieces for me that works as a, and I'm going to change configuration so you can see me maybe better. I hope everyone is still there and everything is going fine. So this piece reacts to your hand movements as you spread your hands and you keep them there in that position. You will see that the patterns are actually following those movements. It's more a sort of meditative piece. It was reworked for the Telfair Museum space. So it's really the new and final version from the piece. And I'm really proud that it has become, it looks what it looks like now. So the whole idea is to celebrate the tropical divinities, maybe divinities from the water, divinities from land, divinities from flowers. It's a piece that works more as a sort of meditation piece that works as an echo of your movements. You don't see the interactivity right away. You have to wait a few seconds to see the impact of your gestures on the animation. So the red dots that you see that are moving are actually the position of my hands. And as I stay in one position, the piece will reflect that interactivity and that position in real time. So for people that will come and go fast, they might not find any use in this piece. But for those that will that have time, take their time, and want to really engage with the piece, this is an interesting piece to flap your wings, like flap your arms as if you were a bird, in a sort of configuration like that. So I'm going to pass to the other pieces. I just wanted to show you how this one worked and interacted. So I'm just going to come back shortly to the keynote to have the time to set up the second piece. So that was tropical divinities, inspired also by the plants, the seashells from the Caribbean islands and the islands I've been able to travel to. This second piece is called Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. I took a long time to decide the title. And I thank Harry for being so patient because most of the pieces were new and I'm not always gifted for titles. And I usually like to work with people that write authors to see and have their feedbacks from the piece. So this one is called Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. Basically, when there's no one in front of the piece, this is what you see. It's being triggered by the social injustice and what I would say police brutality that I witness online all around the world towards different nationalities and maybe Black people also. So it's a piece that once you're being detected by the sensor, you see yourself inside of it. I don't know if you see my glasses moving. And once you're picked up and you actually lift up your arms in the freeze position as if you're inhaled by a police officer, you actually trigger this second part of the interactivity where fragments of faces are turned red and you see yourself staying being white. I think what I was trying to do is ask what are our part of responsibility as a public towards these situations. But at the end, the piece has a positive note. The random colors that you see mixed with the faces are talking about life, the ability of life to continue is the ability to have hope to continue in this spectrum. So each time I lift my hands and something maybe awful happens, well, at the end, there's going to be a randomly selected color that's going to be green, yellow, blue, that symbolizes hope and that life continues, although there's these difficulties. The stars that seems fragmented are also a reflection about, how can I say, this machine, these huge countries that works as machines, as if it was a car making industry, and that could really pass on you and crush you. But also, when you look at them, they look like a sort of pixel art from African sculptures. At least that's the feeling that I had when I built the piece. So time is running out. I'm going to switch to the third piece. So, and I forgot to mention that the faces that you see are fragments of faces of victims from that's been victims of brutality. Yeah. So, and the last piece is called Cosmic Flowers. It was born. It was created last August in St. Martin for a venue that I had commissioned by the city. It's a piece that's a bit more playful, joyful. When I built it, I had dancers in mind, and it actually just follows your hand movements. The patterns follow, and the animations. Sorry, the patterns follow your gestures and hand movements in real time. So it's a fun piece for dancers, for kids, and you can also experience it at the Telfair Museum exhibition. And just to finish, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm just going to come back to the keynote and give you a few. I'm often asked, how did my work come to be? So some references are Edouard Glissant, the Martinican poet that with Césaire worked about on the negritude. Aimé Césaire, obviously. Wilfredo Lam, the great Cuban artist that I feel close to when in the way he talks about nature, the spirits that lie within nature or in a tropical forest. Jackson Pollock, that I discovered late. Actually, I knew about the work, but I just didn't want to go to look too much at it when I started to discover the random drawing process that came to me naturally. Désirée Dolleron, that's a beautiful Dutch photographer. I love her trees, the way she portrayed landscapes, but also this this sort of classic feeling, a Renaissance feeling that she does with portraits of actual people. Miguel Chevalier, that's a huge reference for me. It's a French multimedia artist. I wish someday that I would be as successful that he is, and keep on renewing the work in such a great way. And to finish, Android drawings, that's really a great inspiration, daily inspiration for graphics, graphic designs, and random generated pieces. So I'd like to thank you all for listening, being part of the show. I hope I didn't say too much, how to say, weird things, as we see on the islands. And I'm gonna give back the hand to Harry.
Great. Thank you so much, David. That was fantastic. And we've got so many comments in the chat tonight. Folks asking questions, people expressing their appreciation of what you do, what you're doing. So we're going to begin. We're actually at the 7 o'clock hour now, but if you can stick with us for another 10 minutes or so, we definitely want to get to some of the questions tonight. So I'm going to try my best to get to some of these. One that came up early on was, does the selection of the technology that you're using impact the development of the artwork as opposed, or as you were saying, does it really come more out of that practice of the drawings, the intuitive drawing that you do?
Yeah, the choice of the technology impacts a lot, because most of the work that I do, as I'm self-taught, most of the work that I do, they go with my skills. Unfortunately, for now, I don't have like the sufficient budget. Being on an island isn't always easy to work with our staff or crews on this sort of work. So it's really linked. My skills, the equipment that I have, the access to knowledge that I can get, conditions also the work that I do, definitely.
So another question was, how did you get interested in interactivity and interactive art? What inspired you to begin working with interactivity as opposed to video art, non-interactive?
Basically, I always saw my drawings in movements, and I was a bit frustrated not being able to animate them until today. Actually, I still haven't found the balance to do that the way I feel it inside and stuff. So it came natural. I have this sort of intuition. I think they say, my friends often say I'm quite intuitive. So it came as a sort of intuition of, I started out working with Flash animations from like the late 90s and the early 2000s. Adobe Flash, well, first it was called Macromedia Flash, that became Adobe Flash, was the main tool that I used to do animations and learn animations as a way to maybe live, earn money after the visual art school. So I started working as a web designer and graphic designer, even though I was in the art section and not in the graphic design section. But I found that I got jobs doing animation because it wasn't quite developed back home. But I fell in love with the aspect of being, when you click on something happens, the immediate response of that. And that's how I started being interested in interactivity. The shift happened when I reached in Paris in 2001, and where I met young choreographers that already were working with Isadora, MaxMSP, Pure Data, and different nodal tools. And there's where I started to get interested in the more installation part of interactivity.
So that really came out of the performances and performers who were, or performances that were incorporating Isadora and some of these other some of the other software that you've used.
Yeah, when I went to living in Paris, had a huge advantage of seeing a lot of exhibition, going to a lot of underground music scenes, and I started to see people mixing visuals and sound, or should I say sounds first and then visuals. And I was just intrigued about how it happened. Not being from that culture, it took me about 3 years to do my first interactive piece with a Kinect, because it was a huge learning curve.
And another question we had that came up, and perhaps this has already been answered. You may have seen this in some of the demonstrations, but we had a question of whether your work shown here at the Telfair at the Jepson Center has sound, and a number of the works do have sound components. Yeah,
most of the work do have sound. Sound is one. I would really like to work more with composers and sound creators closely to work on more generative sounds, like sounds that are really triggered and generated or created in live. So that's really something that I would like to do in the future. But the pieces that are presented at the show have sound, but it's more like a cycle that envelopes the spectator, but they don't necessarily react to the interactivity at this point. But I'm really working on new pieces that will bring this, make this possible.
So many people are just telling me how moved they are by your work and your presentation, and how beautiful and vibrant they are. A question from Nadia here is that she noticed that a number of the pieces you showed had the word echo involved. Can you talk about that? I think it's fairly obvious once you see the animation, but I don't know if there may be other reasons behind your use of the word echo in titles.
It's fairly something new. I think it started after the commission work in Lille, for Lille in 2020, 1920. When I talked, I spent a lot of time talking with Dorothée Dupuis, the curator, and the way she was explaining things and her vision of the exhibition, I really started to actually hear this echo, because the subject she was talking about had echoes, different echoes with different societies, because we were artists from the global south, so Brazil and Hispanic countries. I think I was one of the few from the Caribbean, in the French-speaking Caribbean. So I started paying more attention to this sort of term, but the vibrating aspect of it, and the sort of energy aspect of it. This is why actually I didn't come on a Zoom webcam, and I decided to do these sort of animated avatars of myself that actually maybe speak or sense the idea of vibrations, of frequencies, and I think that's I'm always amazed when our Creole dogs hear something in advance and we are sitting next to them and we have no clue why the dog goes running at the gate and actually the mailman is coming or someone is coming to visit and the dog is already barking and it was sitting next to you. So these sort of metaphors, I think they speak about why echo is strongly important more and more in the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of your work is really you sense this kind of. I mean, it's like you see things. You know, when you interact with your work, you see images, colors, things emanating from yourself, from your own silhouette. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things about your work. And there's also a lot of kind of interior imagery I noticed in the work Inner Garden that we're showing here, where you actually see parts of your drawings within the figure. So it's like this kind of it's inner garden of drawings. That the title is very appropriate in that particular case, but there's imagery within the figure. And I think that's a really beautiful use of the figure in your interactive work.
Yeah, I'm proud of the Inner Garden piece because it's a simple piece. There's not like huge interactivity. Sometimes I'm like, should I present this to a festival because maybe they won't find it interested enough. But I'm proud of it because it was created during my Art Omai and Vermont Studio residencies that I did in 2019 in the US. And the first draft of it was my drawing with a white background, but you couldn't really see those abstract and vegetal elements. And what I like is that they mix actually for the first time my drawings and these natural patterns mix for the first time and create something unique. And also, I think as a reference to other artists originated from the Caribbean or Latin America, having this Black silhouette also speaks about a lot. And links this piece, although it seems quite aesthetic, but it links it a lot to Liberté, Égalité, and Fraternité piece also.
Yeah, I got that, especially with your talk about the architecture in that piece, and we didn't show that one tonight. So hopefully folks will come in and see that one. One more question that just came up, and by the way, we've got maybe 1 or 2 more minutes. So if anyone has another question they would like to put in the chat, or if we didn't get to yours, please put it in there. Which we have time maybe for a couple more. We have one that actually came from Ben, and he's talking about your work for stage and scenic design. I know you've collaborated with dancers in the past, with DJs, with musicians and others. Do you see yourself within this sort of history of artists kind of working, designing for the stage or for performance events? We have a show coming up, for example, called Picasso to Hockney, Modern Art on Stage, which has various modern and visual artists who have created work for opera, ballet, and so on. Is that something that that you see yourself doing to a greater extent, working with performance, with opera, ballet, or dance in some other fashion?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have much opportunities here, but it's really something that I wish I could collaborate or integrate a team that that's in tune with my sort of aesthetics and sensibility. Also, most of the time when I'm commissioned to do a dance or theater work, it's completely different from what I do. I try to answer the demand, what the choreographer is asking. But as things goes, I really feel that sometimes I would like to collaborate closely with a team in ballet, in opera, in theater, and in dance pieces. But with our whole team that actually can find, innovate and create new things. Because I have a lot of ideas, like most of us artists, but I feel really limited, although very inspired where I'm situated geographically, but still quite limited in the possibilities of production. But I really do see myself as a full-time artist, collaborating with different structures, entities around the world. But I still think that at one point I enjoy teaching, transmitting. So it doesn't need to be in a class, but there's something in the transmission that I like, also being able to give back or inspire others, as I was inspired by some also.
Fantastic. Well, again, we certainly hope we see you here in Savannah for a performance and another project in the future. One more question. Someone asked, is there a way to view this exhibit online? And the answer is not yet, but we hope to be posting more photos and video now that the installations are complete and we can get some good documentation and get those out on our website. Also, I wanted to let you all know that we've got some other programs coming up. I'll be doing a walkthrough of the exhibition. Hopefully that will work. The technology will cooperate with that. But I will be doing a walkthrough of the exhibition on Friday afternoon. That's virtual. So you can find that in the Pulse schedule as well, which I'm going to add to the chat right now. So you can see if you'd like to follow that, you can register for other programs happening now through the weekend as part of the Pulse Festival. With that, I want to express my deep gratitude to David Gumbs for sharing his incredible work with us here in Savannah and with audiences from around the world who visit Savannah. And hopefully we'll be seeing more, many of you in person, because this exhibition will be up for quite some time. It'll be up through mid-July of this year. And hopefully that time will be emerging from the pandemic and more folks will be able to actually travel to Savannah to see this work in person. But David, I want to thank you as well for just taking all the extra effort to make these pieces special to this venue, because I know you've spent a lot of time reworking many of these pieces, some that you've shown before, but presenting them in totally new forms here. So many thanks for really making this exhibition special. And I know we're going to be enjoying it for a long time to come. So thank you tonight. Also, everyone who attended tonight, we will be eventually posting this video on the museum's YouTube channel with our other lectures. So give us maybe a week or two and we'll try to get that out there as well. So if you know somebody who couldn't attend tonight, they can also watch it later on the museum's YouTube channel. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight. Many thanks for joining us wherever you are, from Savannah, from the Caribbean, from wherever you are in the world. And many thanks to David again. And again, we'll look forward to sharing your work with our audiences for a good part of this year. So with that, thanks, David. And maybe I'll see you tomorrow. We have a small program tomorrow oriented to students. So David may be appearing briefly at that program tomorrow morning at 11. And again, many thanks to everybody for being here tonight. If you just look up Telfair Museums on YouTube, you can get to our YouTube channel very easily, and you'll see examples of all of our lectures there. So
thank you so much, Harry. Sorry for cutting you off.
No.
Thank you so much for the invitation, for trusting in the process, and for helping us finding last-minute solutions. The public has to know that it's really difficult to not be present to install interactive works. So it was a huge challenge, but I'm really happy that you and your team were there to support the work. And thank you for your confidence, actually, because sometimes we have the impression that it's just a question of giving us a chance to show the work and what you are capable of. Thank you all for coming, and all who attended, all that I know and that I don't know. I hope someday we'll be able to meet in Savannah, perhaps.
Great. Well, thanks, everyone, and have a good night. And we'll hopefully see you all again soon for more Pulse programs.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.